Hello, welcome to Friday. If you're here a few minutes early. That's great. We'll be starting at 12, and we'll have Jason kick us off with some Friday housekeeping notes and things like that. So give us about 2.5, 3 minutes here. Again, we got Ralph May here. Ralph May is our most elite operator.
Yeah, I don't know if you should talk that up.
Yeah, if you're part of this class you haven't heard before, Ralph is actually the instructor for the Hacker DevOps class as well. So feel free to check that out and the rest of our training courses on anti-siphon. Otherwise, it's a Friday. Happy to be
It's
here.
Friday, man.
It's actually nice out, not overclouded.
It's 43 here.
Oof. I think
Yeah.
it's going to get 60-ish today where I'm at in Virginia. Ralph's like 60. That's freezing.
Yeah, it's too cold. I think it's like 80 or something here today. It's pretty nice. Yeah.
Ralph's following along with the training too, so if you guys have questions, throw them in chat during the course today. He can help out.
Yep.
All right, I'll go ahead and do my housekeeping now so you guys can start right at 12 Eastern. It shouldn't take me that long. Today's Friday, obviously, fourth and last day of the class. So you guys will be receiving 2 emails. The first email you'll receive will be your 6 months worth of access to CyberRange. If you already have CyberRange access, it's just going to add another 6 months onto that. Obviously, if you don't have CyberRange yet, you get 6 months. The second email you get will be your certificate of completion that you can turn in for CPE hours for whoever you need to turn it into. And included in that email with the certificate of completion, there will be an evaluation form. I think it's only like maybe 10 to 15 questions, but fill it out in completion. Tell us good, bad, ugly, what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, because we can't fix something if we don't know it's broken. So, but if you do fill that form out in completion and submit it, you will be entered into a chance to win a t-shirt like the one I'm wearing. It says, "I only show up for the pre-show banter." Very comfortable shirt, as all of the shirts on our Spearfish General Store are. But yeah, that's all I have. So I'll get off of here and I'll let Steve take over and start teaching.
Great. Thank you, Jason and Ralph. Appreciate it. Let's get started for today. We'll start with a recap of yesterday's training, and then we'll get into what we have today. So let me share my screen. Screen 2. All right, very cool. So yesterday was actually day 3 of training. We went into payload delivery. So payload delivery, we had created our C2, our Azure redirector, and our dropper as well, our Azure websites dropper during this lab. So we went over the different kinds of payloads that we have, whether it's an executable, a CPL, control panel applet, a DLL, Word doc, things like that. We did not do any Word doc payload phishing in this one. Although you've got the business subscription now, or the free trial. You can also install Word because you've installed or you've set up Microsoft 365. So you can do that and test phishing payloads with this kind of lab setup that I have going here as well. We talked a little bit about obfuscation, a little bit about the EDR comparisons and the different payload types that were done through an empirical analysis by some researchers. So we can see that the CPL really does work quite well against various EDRs. Nothing's going to be a silver bullet and be the one payload to get by everything and be totally undetected, right? There's most likely a chance something out there is going to see, whether it's user interaction-based heuristics or whatever. We talked about the difference between public payload generation and creating your own. There are great resources out there like Scarecrow and Ivy, Nimcrypt we used, Alaris is another one. There's plenty out there to generate payloads from shellcode. So we talked about that, and what we did was we ended up using a CPL resource runner that I had named Sci Update. It was part of the Notion notes, so you should have been able to download that and compile it. And that's a modified version of the CPL resource runner. Just a few strings changed, things like that. Take it from the GitHub, change up a few of the calls. You could even change up like how the shellcode's loaded. In the CPL resource runner, it is compressed and base64 encoded. So you could change that up, maybe remove the compression, don't base64 encode it, use an XOR key, something like that, to encrypt the shellcode into a resource. All kinds of cool things you can do to kind of get past that initial barrier of detection. And then again, we talked a little bit about really the post-exploitation part of that is where the detections come into place. It's not too hard to get initial code execution against EDRs and antivirus and things like that, because you most of the time have to just change up the static signatures most of the time. We talked a little bit about how the CPL runs as run DLL32. So run DLL32 calling out to the internet might be an indicator of compromise if there's an active SOC looking for it. So keep that in mind when you're generating your payloads. If they're really digging in, they might see that call to the internet. They might not, who knows? Because we're using Azure environments for our C2, that would look a little bit more legitimate, I believe. And I've never actually had any SOC analysts, like block those domains or anything like that. File serving, talked about our payload delivery, file serving, how to host files in various methods. You can even use like chat services, stuff like that. Let's get into, actually, I think, and chime me in if I'm wrong, did I skip some of the slides for the payload or the payload delivery section? We might have just went right into the lab. And if so, I can kind of breeze through this section. There is a webinar, it's already recorded, so you can just click on the Notion notes and go check out the webinar. But let me know. I know we went and did the Azure Websites Lab. We'll talk about that here in a second. But if I don't recall if we actually went through the slides for phishing infrastructure and stuff. Azure App Services. Yes, we did. All right, cool. I get training brain going. I completely forget where we're at. All right, so cool. We've got some things to do today. So I want to recap this Azure Websites Dropper real quick. One thing I did yesterday, when I did the lab, I skipped uploading my ISO to the Azure websites. So we did walk through all this. We did go ahead and put our payload up there on Azure websites, and we can see what that looks like in the lab, right? It's just a little update portal that I created. So you can change this, you can clone websites again, make it look like whatever you want. And when the user browses to it, you can see right here, the download actually just pops right open and selects open file. They click open file, it's gonna immediately mount the ISO file, open that drive, and then they'll see whatever the contents of the ISO file are. What I ended up having to do was go back and just copy my CPL or my ISO update, my ISO to my phishing page folder, and then just rerun the AZ web app up command. I told you yesterday that if you update your site, all you have to do is rerun the same update command or the same Azure AZ web app up that you ran before, and it will deploy the site with the fresh updates. So if I browse to this site right now, so yeah, so if you didn't change the content, and this is a good time to show that. It's going to try to load Microsoft Updater.exe because that's in the index.html, but we're not serving Microsoft Updater.exe. We are serving sciupdate.iso. So what I can do is code, open this folder. I might already have it open here. Nope, rebooted. So if I open the index, here's where we made our updates. If you want to take the dropper out altogether, there's a comment here that says file download, pop up, replace, or remove. So you could comment out Control Shift or Control, oops. Yeah, put these comments basically here and there, and that would comment out the whole JavaScript downloader. So it would just be a static page, and you could have it put a redirect link on there or whatever you want, whatever fits your pretext. So for me, I'm going to change Microsoft Updater, and this is what you would do as well. If you didn't do that the first time yesterday, go ahead and open up code, go in there and change this to sciupdate.iso, and then we're going to redeploy. If you logged out, you'll have to log back in with AZ login, use device code, and then log in with your Azure account. And that will get you logged in. So you reran your site, and when you browse to it, you do not have permission to view this directory or page. You might have to do what I'm just doing right here. I don't know why it would say don't have permission. Did you deploy from Linux or Windows? Curious. So I modified the index.html. We'll see that my ISO file is there. I'm going to rerun AZ web app up. And random, do you get this output? Like, does it complete and everything? If so, it might be your that exe. I would check this JavaScript dropper because mine just showed me resource was removed. This might take a minute. Let's see. Yeah, I might actually have to refresh the new browser. Yeah, I think it might be cached. Let's see if sciupdate.iso is there. So sciupdate.iso is there. So it looks like this is cached in my browser cache. Don't really want to clear my browser cache. Cool. All right, with that. So my cache is still saying browser update. Let me try Firefox real quick. So if you got a minute, go ahead and take the time, make sure the ISO is in there, redeploy your site, make sure it's up there and that you can browse to it. And this would be good. If we see it, it's still. So let's check. The code here. Did I hit save? Save. I might not have hit save. Re-upload it. What I like about this, it's quick, right? You can make changes to this on the fly. You can use multiple payloads if you want. All right, so that went back up. Let's see if this will redirect me. I wonder if it's a cache thing or if it's just my browser. Let me clear this out. Hopefully this won't kill my sessions. Might. Let's just do last hour. So every time you, great question by Coax, every time you rerun AZ web app up, it overwrites the original. Yes. Looks like that was it. So I just had to clear my cache. If you browsed to it before, clear your history. And see, there it is, sciupdate.iso. I'm not going to mount this yet. I got the EDR installed. We're going to fish and kind of put this in there and do it that way. So let me open up the folder. I'm going to clear my downloads from sciupdate. No worries, random. You got all set up. That's great. Let's clear download history. Yes. Okay, so make sure you're changing that Microsoft updater to sciupdate.iso. Deploy with the command I gave you. And again, if you need it, it's in the notes. I'll throw this in chat. Super easy. So we've got that set up. We've got our dropper set up. I'm going to go ahead and start into phishing. You should have your EDR set up as well. If you didn't get a chance to do that, you can do that today, maybe during a break or something. It literally takes 5 minutes or so to get set up. And we're going to talk about phishing. Everybody's worst nightmare in pen testing and red teaming. Nothing worse than sending a phish and waiting for minutes, hours, days, maybe the person's out of office or something. It can be quite stressful. So let me get PowerPoint going here. Alrighty. All right, phishing. Let's see, show of hands, respond to how many have done phishing. So just put a little mark on there, maybe a thumbs up. If you've actually performed phishing previously, or give me another icon, I guess, if you haven't and this is new to you. Interested to see how many people are actually doing this on assessment, not specifically this technique, but how many people have actually phished before. Because my way is a little bit different than what normal operations typically dictate. I think that a lot of places do click rate phishing, right? We want to check who clicked, percentages of users that click to get those metrics for phishing, right? Sometimes it's the client wants to know, yeah, who phished, so we can, give them re-education. Well, not always a good thing to like point out people, but for me, I'm mostly phishing with the intent to gain access to an environment, not the click rate. I actually haven't done click rate phishing like with GoFish in about 3 years. So yeah, so we're not going to do that here. We're going to do, we'll talk about it, but we're going to do some actual phishing with payloads and trying to get our users to click on it. Yeah, internal phishes work so well. Yeah, so we have methods of doing that here, and we'll talk about and actually do those here once we've kind of gained some access through some of the phishing techniques we're doing. So we will internal phish, and we'll actually do some internal messaging as well. So along with the types, again, I do like attachments. You're sending a payload or a link that's linked to a payload or document or something like that. We have third party where we can use third party services to send our emails with like SendGrid, Mailgun. I didn't have it listed here, but we're going to use it in class, and that's just using a Microsoft business account, right? If you pay for the free trial that we have here today, that we were using for this class, if you were able to use it, if you pay for it, you can pay business account month to month, like I think it's like $6 the last time I checked. So you could get a business account, you could do your fish, close it out, and that's that, you know, roll on to another engagement. And what's great about that is when you do fish from that, you get an onmicrosoft.com mail address, and you can set DKIM, you can do all kinds of cool stuff to secure your own email. Spoofing, so spoofing is dead, long live spoofing, right? A lot of places have a lot of protections in place, Mimecast, Proofpoint, secure email gateway, you know, things like that that are out there on the perimeter, and they're filtering for spam and attachments of certain types, things like that. Some will even like take the attachment and scan it for viruses and things like that. So spoofing has kind of been dead for a while, but I'm going to bring it back a little bit in this class and show you a way that I do it. So we have external relays, we don't see those much anymore, and then internal relays. What we're going to do today is kind of use an external to spoof internal. Email process, so this is from SendGrid, which is a third-party email service. I do use this on phishing engagements from time to time because if in your SPF record, we'll talk about this, in your SPF record, SendGrid.net is allowed, chances are you might be able to do some sort of spoofing with that client if you're sending from SendGrid. So we use SendGrid, sign up for an account, get an API key, and you can spoof away. Now, I believe they added some protections for specific spoofing. I don't know, it still works for me. But I have an older account. I think they might have kind of grandfathered some legacy accounts in, but it is still a valid path. They may have killed the external to external relay type thing where you're saying, hey, I'm from an external entity and I spoof that. But you should still be able to spoof internal. So we see here you've got the sender, it's an outbound mail server, goes through the internet, checks MS records on DNS. It's the inbound mail server, or that could be the secure email gateway, right? Mimecast, Proofpoint, things like that, which then send the traffic to your either Microsoft 365 environment or on-prem OA, something like that. Protections. Okay, so there are a lot of protections. There are a lot of layered defenses organizations have, and what I've seen in my case, and that we'll use today to kind of abuse some Microsoft functionality, is when you install Proofpoint or another third-party email secure gateway or something like that. Typically, if you have Microsoft 365, it handles all of the spam and stuff for you, right? It's out there doing its thing, and then it just filters in. So we've got a way now to use Microsoft 365 Outlook connectors to kind of get in between that and send emails to the internal without worrying about Proofpoint. First one is Spamhaus. Spamhaus, like if I try to send a fish from my home residential IP, I get an email or an error that says, you know, blocked, this IP blocked by Spamhaus. Typically, you'll get that for residential ISPs. Yep, so coax put a SendGrid curl command in there. I'm actually going to show you a Python script that does it as well. Well, thank you for that. Yep, it's pretty easy. Just need an API key. Email gateways, Proofpoint, Mimecast, user awareness. That's the biggest hurdle these days for me, at least, is users are becoming way more aware because of things like that report phishing button from PhishMe that goes right into the Outlook client. if something looks sketchy, they just click on the report phishing button and it goes to whoever it goes to, and then we get our access lost, right? So user awareness is important to have the proper training. And when I'm doing an ROE call or a statement of work call with a client and they want phishing, I ask about their user awareness training. Oh yeah, we do user awareness training every month. It's fantastic. We've reduced our click rates, all that stuff. That's great, that's great. Have you sent any payloads in? Have you sent any malicious Word documents or Excels or Access databases or EXEs, ISOs, image files, VMDKs, whatever? Have you, fished with payloads to test the resiliency of your defenses and your user base? And 9 times out of 10, I get a no. We or our service does not do that. So that's where we come in with the more specialized spear phishing and things like that, right? Where we're testing whether or not they're going to not only click on a link, but maybe download a file and execute it on their system. So what Spamhaus looks like, basically like this, just like the other thing. Sender goes to send the message. It checks if your IP is listed in Spamhaus. You can go ask to have it removed, but if you're in a residential IP block, chances are you're not going to get that to happen. So then the policy decision, and then it gets sent on to the mail gateway. So we got a question in chat. What could possibly be misconfigured on the target's SMTP gateway appliance if you can telnet to it and send email from internal accounts to other internal accounts? I've seen this twice. Once was a Cisco appliance, but I've never found out why this worked. Well, we're going to do that in class. That's exactly what we're going to do today, except we're going to use Outlook connectors, which we're going to talk about. You can telnet to it right now. For your domain that you have created for this class. And most Microsoft 365 tenants, you can still telnet to a service and then send emails into the network, and sometimes even spoof outside environments as well. Sender policy framework. So this is basically the second hurdle after Spamhaus, right? Are you allowed to send from the location you're sending for that domain? So it's basically DNS for email authentication that I labeled it. It's a list of IP addresses and domains authorized to send emails from that domain. So here's a record I show you. It's SPF includes spf.protection.outlook.com. So that is your Microsoft 365, or what used to be Office 365. And that also includes SendGrid.net. So we could, get an API key for SendGrid, send on behalf through SendGrid, and possibly spoof. They do have Proofpoint in this case with the PP hosted. That's how you know it's Proofpoint. So that gets me to thinking, well, maybe Proofpoint is handling all the protections and Microsoft 365 is not. And then Zendesk, mail.zendesk.com. Are you able to send mails from Zendesk? So I always look at these SPF records, see the different third-party services, and I'll go maybe register. If they allow Mailgun, I'll go register for Mailgun. If they allow SendGrid, go get SendGrid. Zendesk, I haven't used it before, but maybe you could go sign up for a Zendesk account and send emails. A lot of times we see those kind of spammy services that send out a lot of, emails on behalf of companies. They'll get added to the SPF record, and then it's possible to maybe use that service to phish the company you're after. DMARC Analyzer. I like this tool. Let me actually copy this link. Let's go check this out real quick. I want to show you what DMARC Analyzer does and why I like it. So it is an SPF record checker. So if I try to verify my domain. Let's see, futuresec.io. Oh, great. I am not a robot. Let's validate DNS. All right, so what this does is gives you a nice layout of the SPF record within the tenant or the domain that you're using. So if I go to dnsdumpster.com, futuresec.io, and we see my SPF record here. It is it's just protection.outlook.com, and yours will look the same. You should be able to put your futuresec.onmicrosoft.com. Yeah, and get the same SPF record. Now look, this one has a hard fail. But my my .io domain has a soft fail, so that could help. Oh yeah, we got a question from Coax. Does the includes matter if they're doing a soft fail versus hard fail? So for what we do today, it shouldn't matter at all. With SendGrid, and I'll show you why. So even if you have a hard fail, let's look here. Let's look at my hard fail, not futuresec.io. Well, let's look at futuresec.io first. So there's our record. We have the soft fail with the tilde all. So we didn't find any problems. Now, what's great about this is it'll take this SPF record and it'll look at the SPF records for the domains within it. So here we see that spf.protection.outlook.com has its own SPF DNS records. So we can see that spf.protection.outlook.com accepts emails sent from those IP addresses, including IPv6. Think about that. There's another landscape or threat model that a lot of places don't check on is if you're sending from an IPv6 IP address, right, versus IPv4. Could be beneficial and get around some protections. Requires a bit of setup if you're using a VPS, right? And then we see include SPFD protection.outlook.com hard fail. So if we're sending mail from here, we're good. If we're sending mail from here, we're good, right? And then this also includes SPFD. So let's go down to SPFD. So you see how your SPF records cascade through the systems? So this shows you that SPFD again has its own SPF records. All right, so as long as you send from there. So what I've found is basically the least privilege here is when we send from SPF record, we're actually sending from SPFD protection.outlook.com. And I think I can put Telnet on here real quick. Should be able to Telnet to this, I believe, on port 25. Nope. One of these. I think it's mail. Yeah. So if you add a mail subdomain in there for spfd.mail.protection.outlook.com, you can telnet to that. Hello. Yes. Okay. Receipt. Oh no, not receipt. Mail from sender. Okay. So you can see you can telnet into spfd.protection.outlook.com, and we'll get into this for our sending. So we see our SPF records cascade. You can also analyze DKIM, DMARC, and all that stuff from here. So let's go DMARC record check. Futuresec.io. Mountains or hills. Okay, okay. It's usually a third one, if there isn't. Oh, man. Oh, there it is. So no DMARC record. If there's no DMARC record, chances are you can spoof. But most places aren't going to put a hard fail or block everything with DMARC. I've noticed, because then they have to go in and all of their email providers, they have to allow them, and basically anybody that sends an email, they got to allow it through, and DMARC becomes a little daunting. But let's check our DKIM records. And if we don't have a DKIM record, I'll show you real quick. Where is the search? Oh, I think we have to have the selector. Yeah, so we didn't set up a DKIM, so I know we're not going to have that anyways, but I did put a link for, oh, it's coming up in here. We'll get to it. Yeah, there's another one. And MX Toolbox has one as well, I believe. Let's go ahead and look at that. Like trying new things, DMARC Analyzer. Yeah. Thank you. So, yep, no DMARC there. DKIM's the same thing. We would need the selector. But in our recon, when you're using AAD internals, you can get the records for Microsoft that way. And I believe, let's just try it. So with AAD internals, let me clear this real quick. If we should have covered this before, but I want to just show you again since we're here. Recon as outsider. Our domain name is futuresec.io. So AAD and Recon as outsider will actually give you the MX record stuff. It'll tell you if desktop SSO is enabled. And then, so we got DNS, yes. MX record, yes. SPF, yes. It's a managed domain, no DMARC, so that's good. And same for FeatureSec on Microsoft, but nothing for FeatureSec.xyz. So chances are we're not going to be able to do any mail stuff with FeatureSec.xyz. All right, so talked about DMARC. DKIM is a domain keys identified mail. It's another protection system. So it attaches a new domain name identifier to a message, and it uses cryptography to validate the authorization. So there we see in that record below, it's using RSA SHA-256. The domain is example.com. And then you've got a, looks in base 64 encoded records there. So that's your DKIM. You can set DKIM with your tenant. And I want to show you that. So this blog, The Art of the Device Code Fish, I have it later here in the slide decks, but I wanted to show it to you now because it talks about setting up your environment for what we're doing today. So this is basically kind of what we're doing today a little bit, and you can check the setup through here as well. It's the same as how we do it, except for DKIM. We do in this blog add a DKIM signature. And that's as easy as install module, Exchange Online Management, import that module, connect to Exchange with your admin account that you created as an Exchange administrator in Microsoft 365. Return your DKIM selector. So that's that selector right here that we were looking at. So it would be selector, whatever. That'll give you your selector name. And should be enabled. So now your Microsoft 365 business account that sends email will have a DMARC record and an SPF record. Won't have DMARC, but it will have DKIM, which is important. If you're sending to another domain, you can validate that you are who you say you are. So we can fish from your Microsoft business account and get into just about any email box, unless your content is super spammy, right? Yep, definitely check that blog out. It's a very good resource. And it talks about token tactics too, which we'll be using today. Bobby Cook, by the way, is the co-author of Token Tactics with me. So we jointly created that. He created the blog to explain how to use it. I would suggest following him. DMARC, so this is the one that is the fourth layer of protections. I mean, how many layers do we need, right? So it's a domain-based message authentication, reporting, and conformance to help minimize false positives, assert sender policy. So make sure that the policies are being enforced. In this case, we see DMARC policy of reject. So basically, if you're not who you say you are, we're just going to reject the email completely. Now that's the most secure method you can do, but at the same time, people might be emailing users in your organization and they can't email them because your DMARC is set to reject basically everybody. What does that look like? We talked about this a couple times. Pretty much the same. So you create your email, you send your email, you insert your DKIM header when it sends the email. So it says, hey, we are who we are, and here's our signing key. The email goes to the receiver, get your spam house, IP blacklist, reputation, things like that. And then it hits to check the DMARC policy, that whole green box right there. DMARC encompasses all that. So retrieve the DKIM domains, retrieve the envelope from, and then apply the appropriate DMARC policy, right? Does everything line up? Is it all set, copacetic? Then we get into whether or not it gets quarantined, blocked, or passed. And then it goes to the spam account filters or spam filters and things like that. So multiple layers of protections, but with the Outlook connector, we can pretty much get around it all. EvilGenix 2, have to say some words about EvilGenix 2. This is my favorite phishing platform, basically, or man in the middle tool to use, especially for phishing, because if a user signs in to your man in the middle proxy with EvilGenix 2, even if they're using multi-factor, they get a session token back, or session key or cookie. Well, you steal that cookie and then you can impersonate that person, basically, as long as the token or cookie is good. Sometimes it's a very long time. We say bypass MFA, but it's not really a bypass. It's collecting the MFA material and then just reusing it. Does require a domain and a virtual private server of some sort. Does anybody have a link to the person that created it's like EvilGenix, but it forwards it to your own host and uses no VNC? That's a recent one that came out that I would want to talk about here today. If anybody has that link, if not, I'll find it here in a minute. Can use a CDN, so you can use Cloudflare or Azure CDN to forward the traffic. So then when your user gets the phishing email, the link in there will take them to the CDN. So that would be, or your Azure websites.net. You could redirect from there as well. So that would be, company AA azureedge.net, and that's what would be in the phishing email as a link to click on. So if you make that enticing enough, it does work quite well. You can also attach your own domain, but then that domain gets scrutinized for categorization, reputation, things like that. Yeah, so bypass 2FA using no VNC. Let's go check that out. And I put a link in here for Warhorse. That is a project from Ralph May, who was on here earlier. He's in the chat. If you have any questions about that, beat him up about it. It is a Docker-based EvilGenix 2 ready to go platform. So let's open up this other one because I think it is worth noting. It's a really cool new technique that came out, and like to see new stuff. So Mr. Docs, great blog post here, and does reference EvilGenix 2 as you normally would. And this one is for Google. It's not for Microsoft 365, but I'm sure you could set it up to do that. So what we're doing in this case is, like he says up here, steal credentials, giving users remote access to your server via HTML5 VNC client that has a browser running in kiosk mode. So when your user browses to your phishing page, it's really no VNC. It's kind of think of remote desktop, RDP. No VNC is a way in a browser or like Guacamole to view a remote session. Or log into a remote service. So if you have no VNC running with a browser, when the user browses to it, it looks just like the site. And you can see that here. So in the VNC session, it's connecting, but it gives them the actual sign-in page, right? So then you can steal cookies, tokens, inject JavaScript, all that kind of stuff. So really cool to check out. We're not going to do it today. It is relatively new. Oh, userland, you brought up a good point. We got time. We'll talk about that. So Rogue RDP, I've actually used this on engagement. I'm lucky enough to work with the author, Mike Felch. We did a co-presentation about token tactics and Rogue RDP not too long ago. And what he's doing here with Rogue RDP is basically sending a .rdp file to your target or linking them to it if you fish with a link. And what it does is it downloads the RDP file. When they double click the RDP file, it will auto connect to a server that you control, sign in automatically. There's no sign in prompt. So think if you open remote desktop here, and you want to go sign in somewhere, you got to give it a computer name. You could give it the username, and then it will prompt you for the password, things like that. But in this case, the RDP file has stuff embedded into it, so it automatically connects, automatically logs in. When you log into the server, there's some code on the back end that can read the files on the remote system. So the user who's RDPing to you, you can check out all the files. You can actually access the C drive, the D drive, the network shares, all that stuff remotely. Think about that. If I RDP to you, you can access my computer's stuff without me doing any kind of sharing or anything like that. And you can also think about if you can plant files, you could plant persistence, you could plant my hotkey LNK, so the next time the user hits Control-C, Control-V, or whatever you set the hotkey up to, it'll launch your payload, then you have a shell on the system. So how many places out there are blocking RDP files? Not many, because it's not on the Outlook block list, right? By default, Outlook will block certain extensions, so think about that when you're phishing. I do have it linked here in the slides here in a bit, but so RDP is not blocked. You can copy the clipboard as well. So you could maybe get a password that they've copied recently. And here's a good screenshot of what Rogue RDP looks like. So the Google Calendar injection that's discussed there in chats, I am aware of it. Bo Bullock and Mike Felch also worked on that piece for Black Hills. I think they've got a blog on it somewhere, but I don't know of any way to do that for teams. Now, if you fish somebody, you could inject into their own calendar. You could do that, yeah. Or send an invite, right? All right, so let's get back on track. It's 2:48. Actually, let's take a 10-minute break. We will plow through the rest of the slides. I don't have too many slides left, and then we'll get going on the labs. Got a couple labs to do today. Might get done a few minutes early so we can do whatever we want then, fish each other, I don't know. We can hang out and talk about some perimeter action maybe. Again, I didn't include any perimeter in this yet. I didn't want to make this like feel OSCP style, right, where we're just popping shells on web servers and stuff, though those are hugely valid attack paths, and web attacks are probably my favorite, actually, even internally. Once I've gained access through a fish, that's one of the first things after I do my initial checks and stuff that I look for is other web services inside Depone. So go ahead and take 10 minutes. We'll come back at 1 and continue. All right, welcome back. Let's see here. Let's get back on PowerPoint. All right, so we talked about EvilGenix 2 and some other methods there. Let's talk about the Microsoft 365 Outlook connector. So the Microsoft 365, when you sign up for the business account with Exchange Online, you get a onmicrosoft.com domain, including the ability to send emails from that whatever subdomain you created. So in this case, let's say we created Microsoft device codes.onmicrosoft.com. I've got something similar to this that I use for device code phishing. Works really well. And then when the user sees the subdomain that matches up to the pretext and it's on a Microsoft.com domain, they're more likely to click on it. Also great for getting around spam filters, junk, things like that, because you are coming from a reputable domain. And you can set DKIM on there as well. It's not great for bulk sending. There is a daily sending limit. See if I can find that. I'm not 100% sure what that is. See if a quick Google search will tell us message limits. It says message size. Anyways, there is a message limit. I'm not sure what the total is. So I use this for my spear fishing, right? I'm not using this for Go Fish to mass fish the entire company. So your Outlook connector, it can look like domain.com, domain-com.mail.protection.outlook.com. Or it could be if your domain is registered with the DNS and it's not the on Microsoft, it could just be domain.mail.protection.outlook.com. So you can test that by SMTPing or telnetting to it. It is SMTP, so in many cases you can spoof based on just based on the way it's set up and what we talked about earlier. So I wanted to show you what I use in a lot of cases is just the send mail message commandlet from PowerShell. You can just send emails at will from PowerShell on any host. And in this case, I sent it from my home IP address at that time and received a spam house block. So we can see that that came from one of the prod servers at protection.outlook.com, because once our email went up there, it's checked the spam house list and said, nope, your IP range is not allowed to send mails. So I get blocked. Now you could also proxy this through, I showed you how to do a proxy with the Azure Cloud Console. So then you would have an Azure Cloud Console IP, and you match that proxy, that SOCKS proxy with Proxifier to then proxy your Windows traffic through. So you've got PowerShell that way. You might even be able to run this on Linux with PowerShell for Linux. Azure websites. So that's what we use to stand up our dropping site, but you can also use it for phishing. You could also use it for a lot of things. Again, there's multiple platforms that multiple platforms provided to you: Node.js, PHP.NET, Java, Ruby, Python, or static HTML. I believe there's a couple others in there I might have missed. So you've got a lot of options of what kind of stuff. Oh, Docker is a good one. You can load Docker containers directly into an Azure website. So think about that. Maybe EvilGenix 2, you could just load onto there. Then you'll have an Azure websites.net EvilGenix 2 domain. So some research to be done around there. zFisher, simple credential harvesting. I love zFisher. I've used it in several cases in lieu of EvilGenix 2, just because I didn't have much time to set up an EvilGenix 2 account and all that. And all I really wanted was credentials, which still work great because you could do those multi-factor bypass endpoints like EWS, OA, not OA, but EWS, sometimes cloud.com if their Azure and Citrix environments aren't linked with multi-factor, things like that, and other endpoints, ActiveSync. So let's look at my blog here real quick. Yep, wrong blog. All right, so in my blog post at the bottom of that, I'll go ahead and link that in here. I think I've linked it before, but let's do it again. So this is the Azure App Services that we use to stand up the dropper site. Well, you can also use it for phishing if you look down here. We can use zFisher. So with the zFisher, we can clone our, I don't even need to clone anything. You just copy zFisher in through the console, you know, the web, Azure Web Console. We went into the Azure App Services, and on the left-hand side, you can click Console and actually go into your Azure app, copy files around, do whatever you want to do, run PHP. So what we do is we do the Azure App Plan, and instead of a static HTML, we don't give it one. It just stands up basically a PHP service for us. So then we can clone right here. You can actually get, instead of, oh, here we go. Yeah, you tell it what runtime you want it to have when you do your AZ web app create. So runtime in this case was PHP 7.4. So what I did then was set it up so that I could clone that repo, add my files with Git from zFisher. What I did was I went to zFisher. Let me open that up. If you're not familiar with zFisher, it is a static phishing page. You can pick from multiple phishing targets, basically Facebook, Instagram, Office 365, Twitter, you name it. There's quite a few in there, and you can use ngrok, Cloudflare D, or just host it yourself. So what I do is I come into here and I just go to the one I want, sites. These are all the different sites you can mimic. And see, these are still being updated 2 days ago for Facebook. Let's go to, there's 365, Microsoft. So this would be Microsoft 365s, and you would get a screen that looks like this, right? So it looks real, looks legit, just like the regular Microsoft page. And so you would have an AzureWebsites.net. So you could say like Microsoft login.azurewebsites.net or Microsoft log. Yeah, that might fit. So then, just like we did before with the Azure Apps console, you can go into your console. You can do just about anything with the files that are in there. So I just ls to show you that they're in there. Somebody comes to my website at azurewebsites.net. They log in, they enter their credentials, and then in the console, I can just cat the log file and see the credentials show up. So then I would take that, I would use something like MFA sweep to sweep the different MFA endpoints, or just go right ahead and try to connect to EWS with Mail Sniper and see if we can read emails and things like that. So zFisher is a great static website platform. I don't think it does any actual redirecting, and grabbing of, multi-factor credentials. Yeah, it does not. But still, those credentials are highly useful. You could even, do credential stuffing attacks or something then afterwards. So let me pull up this again. All right. So device codes. This is what a device code login page looks like. If you go to Microsoft.com/device login, you will see this page prompt you. It is a legitimate sign-in page. Obviously, it's from Microsoft. Think about like if you logged into Netflix, let's say you got like a Roku or a streaming stick or something like that, plugged it into your TV, and then it says, hey, do you want to connect to Netflix? Enter this code at this website. So then you log in on your computer to your Netflix account, enter that code. It sees that you logged in with your account and lets the TV sign in. That's what we're doing here. We're sending the code via PHIS to a user because we've created a session with Microsoft and we're waiting on that code to be validated. And then when the user enters the code, we get their tokens. We get their access token, their refresh token, and things like that. There's the GitHub for token tactics. Again, I put the device code PHIS, art of device code PHIS blog post in there so you can read more on setting it up, or you can set it up just like we did here. Talked about those tokens. So your access token, that is what grants you access to the service. If you wanted to follow that link to access tokens, it's a great resource on them for Microsoft documentation. Timeout for an access token is 1 hour. So once you've received the access token, you only have an hour to use it. But when you're phishing, you only have 15 minutes for the user to actually sign into this site. We've got a 15-minute window to get in, basically. Send your phish, wait 15 minutes. If they haven't clicked by then, it times out, and then you lose that phishing engagement. So with this, you could send the same code to like 5 different people. You could send different codes to 5 different people. You could do one at a time, whatever works for you. But I've found that targeting cloud admins or admins of any kind is more likely to get you in than somebody who's never used a device code or a regular end user. I've had a mixed results, but the most part I'm targeting admins or cloud admins, cloud devs, things like that with this phish. Because if you get access to Azure or Microsoft 365, it's better if you have some kind of administrative access. And this is a legit site, looks legit. We can make our phishing email look just like one that came from Microsoft. All right. Enter token tactics. So token tactics is the tool that Bobby Cook and I wrote. It is on my GitHub under reverse shell token tactics. There's a tiny link at the bottom there. Should make that bigger. So you can phish users for their access and refresh tokens. I should mention that the refresh token timeout is 90 days. And every time you refresh, it extends that. So you can basically keep persistence for a very long time, unless the account, they purge the access tokens or even reset the password. In some cases, it will kick you out. If you get your access token, you want to know what it looks like decoded, you can go to jwt.ms, put your code or your access token or refresh token in there, and it will parse it for you so you can see the different structure of the token. And we can do that during the class. So once the user authenticates with multi-factor, it's not required to refresh the token again. So you're good. Once you have that access, you're persistent. Now, there are different services for Microsoft. We'll get into those in a bit, but like there's Microsoft Office, there's Power BI, Exchange Online, SharePoint, things like that. Well, with the refresh to command, that's where the power of token tactics comes in, because you can switch between different audiences or different endpoints just by refreshing with the refresh token that you have. So we could say, hey, our access token is for Microsoft Graph API, but I want to switch that to Microsoft Teams so then I can send Teams emails. You can do that with token tactics currently. Hopefully they don't fix that. Well, hopefully they do, but not during the class. Run Azure Hound. So yeah, once you get your tokens, you can get a couple more tokens, refresh 2, get the right tokens, and run Azure Hound. You can run AAD internals, many of the commands from AAD internals. You can interact with Teams and email, which we will do at basically the last lab of the day. And there's certainly more attack surface to explore. If you follow Waldo or Andy Robbins on Twitter, it's one of the co-authors of the Bloodhound tool and Azure Hound tool. He's always bringing out new tweets of different attack surface things that he's looking at. Dr. Azure AD, which writes the AAD internals tool, is a great resource to follow, especially with this research. They're constantly coming up with new things in Azure to look at. And as you can see from our password spraying, I kind of figured out that you can basically look like any of the apps when you're password spraying. So there's definitely a lot more to look at even in that area. Somebody posted a script for SPF spoofing or sending mail through SendGrid. You can do that with SPF abuse as well from Mr. Unicoder. So the SPF abuse script, basically you feed it your API key for SendGrid and it will connect to SendGrid and then send your emails for you. And those you can do, there is a rate limit, but I think you can do a little bit more than you can do through Outlook connector. So a little bit more on the Outlook connector. Outlook mail relay is yes, SMT port 25. You can configure this to be an external relay. You can configure it to be an internal relay, but by default, we don't need that. All we need is them to trust their own domain, and then we can spoof freely. So company.mail.protection.outlook.com, company-com, or in my case, futuresec-io should all be valid. And I think even the spfd.mail.protection.outlook.com is universal. One thing I've noticed is that depending on where I'm sending an email from, might affect the ability to spoof. I had a recent engagement where they had sites in Europe, in the US, and their mail records were held in the Europe, but I was trying to spoof into the US and they were getting certificate errors and things like that. So there's some more attack surface to explore there as well. Often spoofable, internal to internal, external to internal. Every time I've used this on engagements, I've sent a test to my POC first before sending out my fishes, just to say, hey, we're going to fish, let's test it. Some cases your clients want you to send them the fish that you're going to send the pretext anyway so they can validate it. So check with your POC sometimes if you can before actually sending it into production. I've been able to spoof outside, so like let's say I'm no-reply.cisco.com, then I get when I send the fish in, my email actually has the Cisco logo up there because their no reply address has the logo up there. So it looks like it came from that. I've also done Uber. I think we'll actually try Uber in the class, no reply at uber.com. So I do that a lot. If I see that my target organization is using a third-party service, well, maybe they get emails from that, and maybe I can spoof that. Or I sign up for their contact me form on the website, on their corporate website. It sends me an email, says, hey, welcome, thank you for registering. Here is, here's your, click here to activate your account or whatever. Well, then you could take that email or take the email address that it came from and try to spoof from there. So if you send it inside, it looks like a legitimate email that typically comes out. So I mentioned external email gateways may reduce spoofing security. Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing to say. So let's say you put Proofpoint on top of your Office 365 account. Now Proofpoint is protecting you, and maybe Office 365 protections are dialed back a bit or non-existent. In that case, the Outlook connector kind of sits, I think, in front or behind the mail gateway. So when you connect and send from the Outlook connector, I don't think it gets the same scrutiny. I haven't been blocked by Proofpoint yet doing this. Knock on wood, mileage may vary. So it is a cool technique we'll be doing here. There's some more information on SMTP relaying and what Outlook connectors are, why they're there. So why does this work? So think about if you're company A, you stand up a mail server and things like that. User A sends an email to user B in the same company. It goes to spam because their text was spammy or whatever they put in their weird attachment. Well, you don't want that to happen because you're sending internal to internal. So you go in here and you set a bypass for that. This is common practice, bypass spam filter, and then you set the sender's domain to your own. So you're not your own emails aren't going into spam. That opens up a huge hole for us to then send spoofed emails. So think about that if you're exercising your customers this way and they're asking, well, how can we fix this? What's the problem here? Why isn't this working? Tell them to go in and check their spam bypasses in Microsoft 365. Cool. Any questions so far? We're going to jump into some labs here in a minute, prep our environments, and then do some fishes. We should maybe get a first fish out by 2. No? Okay. Let's pipe up or chime in if you do have questions. Let's get started with the prep lab. So we got to do, just like what this screenshot says, we got to go in there and set our bypass spam filtering for our own domain. So how do we do that? First, I go to the instructions so I remember how to do that. We got to go to our Exchange portal. Close out some of these tabs, eating all my memory. All right, so if you follow along in the prep section of the phishing notes lab, you see here, navigate to admin.exchange transport rules. So signed into your Azure account, not your Exchange. Let's see, no, this will be your Exchange admin. Sorry, I don't think I put that in here. Yep, I did. Sign in as your Exchange admin user. So on this side, I'm actually signed in to my main account. I'm going to sign out so I don't have browser issues. I'm going to sign back in. I'm going to copy this link or just click on it. So that is my Exchange admin account. So I'm doing this on my Vandelay LLC. Instead, this is a new tenant for me, a new domain. So I'm basically following along with you to see if our fishes actually make it in. Knock on wood, hopefully they do. I did when I built this city. Oh, no, don't want to go into that. When I built this lab, I was fishing myself first and not realizing what that protection was, that bypass filter protection. So everything I was doing was going into junk, and I had never ran into that on engagement. So I had to go in and learn what this was for, how that worked. So I'm going to log into my Exchange admin with my Exchange administrator user. Lots of options here. And think about that if you fish a cloud admin or somebody along those lines that may have an Exchange admin privileges, you can go to this site, you can change their mail flow, you can add allow lists, things like that to get around, which we'll talk about a little bit in the following labs. All right, so we're in, let me move this over here. So we need to log into here, and I've got add bypass spam filtering rule. Well, to get to that, I think I missed that part. Let's go to mail flow. in rules. Yep. Let me add that real quick to the notes. So I'm going to that open. So the great thing about Notion, right? I can update this stuff on the fly. Okay. See. Navigate to mail flow rules. Okay. Turn this into a numbered list. And right there. All right. So this page should update momentarily. Guess had to do it from Nix, not PowerShell. Oh, are you talking about standing up the AZ web app coax? So once you're here, you can go to rules. Here are all the rule types we can make. Ooh, now think about it. If you take over an account here, you can modify messages. That's interesting. So what we're going to do is bypass spam filtering. So I'm just going to name this bypass rule. Apply this rule if the sender, now you can do the sender is internal, or you can do the sender domain is. I'm going to do the domain. I'm going to add my Vandelay Vandelay LLC.onmicrosoft.com. And that should be the only one I have to add here because I don't have, did it save it? Oh, I didn't add it. Add. Okay, so now we're there. And we don't need to do anything else. In this case, we're just adding it to the bypass rule. There are other things here. Audit this rule. Choose the mode for test or enforce. Activate the rule and specified dates. So if you're on an op and you're like, hey, whatever, I got to turn this rule off by this date, you can do that. So we're going to go ahead and save that. Make sure I have the correct domain here. Oh no, I didn't even. Vandelay Industries.llc. So for this, I need to re-add this bypass spam filter, bypass rule, apply this if the domain sender's domain is. Okay, now it's saving. Okay, so that should be there. And you see what it's saying, set the spam confidence level to -1. So this is saying, hey, don't put this in the junk folder, basically. All right, so we're going to use our business account, one of our accounts, to actually fish ourselves. And in this case, we're just going to use our admin account. In the real world scenario, you would be using something like no reply at whatever your subdomain is .onmicrosoft.com. Now that might be helpful because maybe the user won't reply. A lot of times we'll send phishing pretext and we'll get somebody like, is this phish? Is this a spam? What's going on here? What is this? And then you got to respond, right? And kind of close out the loop so they don't inform security. All right, so for the business account phish, ISO phish, so what I said, we're sending a phish from one Microsoft 365 account you control to another to simulate the phish. Later on, we're going to do the spoof, and the spoof will be outside unauthenticated. So this one's a little contrived because we're sending to ourselves, sending, you know, whatever, but you could try to send this to your Gmail account or whatever account you have as well. See if it gets through. It's your own account, so feel free to. This one's hard to read here, but browse to outlook.office.com. So we're going to do that. I'm gonna do that over here. Will this go into the window? No, it won't. All right, so I'm on my admin account. I'm going to do a new message. In this message, we're going to use a link to our dropper site that we created before. So make sure that is whatever your dropper site is. Again, you would make this pretext fit whatever your scenario is. So add subject. Now keep in mind, if you add terms like urgent, that may hit spam filters. If you're doing the spoof though, that may not, shouldn't matter. So I'm going to say, this is a phish, there's an ISO they need to open, and then an executable in there that they need to run. So the way I'm going to approach that is I'm going to say, hey, there is a, I'm coming from Vandelay Industries, so this is contrived, obviously. If you're from Vandelay Industries, I'm just gonna say Vandelay software update. You're from, let's see, your organization. Of course, you could replace this with whatever. Contracted Vandelay Industries to update components in your please visit once installed, no reboot is required, and you may is required. That's good. The system will automatically log your install and inform IT of completion. Again, we want to close out your email. We don't want them to come back and respond or say, you know, hey, this looks weird. They're asking me to do things, but there's no way for me to contact them back. So what I'm saying here is that once they run the executable, right, they're not going to see anything. You could add in your payload maybe a PDF dropper or in your LNK file or something to open a README or something like that. But in this case, I'm just going to say, hey, we're going to automatically log that install. No need to contact anybody. Guards and delay information technology. Customer support. All right. I spelled that wrong. Okay, so now in here, I'm going to put the link to my website. I can remember it. Did I close out of that? So it should be Vandelay LLC, Vandelay. I believe that's it. If it's not, I'll fix it later. So what I do is when you paste, it automatically makes this an href tag. I don't like that. I like my links to be just text. And I think by default, Outlook will tag this text for you once it gets to the inbox. That helps in some cases get around scanners that look for those ahref tags and then follow the URL. I'm going to send this to George. It's my other Vandelay Industries. Again, I'm sending this internal to internal, so probably not going to go to spam, but we're going to see that we can then go basically infect ourselves, which is what we're going to do. We've got EDR installed. If you haven't installed EDR, you can do this now, but I would suggest going back and getting the EDR going, and we can check out what happens. So I'm going to send this to George Costanza, which is my other user. Okay. Got a note from Surgical Mittens. Had some luck telling people to reply to the email if they have issues so we can prioritize issues. Sometimes I get a reply that can help a pretext call. Absolutely, that's a great way to approach that to close the loop. Yeah. And again, maybe you don't have to send a payload the first time. And with the reply, a good point to note what Surgical Mittens is talking about is you have to have the ability to reply. So if you're using something like GoFish, you may not be able to respond to any emails getting sent to you. I don't know if they've added that feature in since the last time I used it a few years ago, but it wasn't very interactive before. That's why I read mail if I'm doing custom fishes or just using a business account like this. The downside to spoofing is the fact that you can't close out that loop if they want to reach back out to you. And if you spoof somebody on the inside, there's a few things to consider. If they're sitting right next to each other, it's probably not a good idea. So spoofing one person to another person in the department, if they're on the same floor, if they're right next to each other, things to think about. They may respond to that other person. Hey, did you send me this email? So try to close out your fish if you're doing an internal without having them contact you for any method or reason. All right, so I've sent a fish to myself. Let me log out of the admin account, open another mailbox. Let me do that. Oh, can I do that? I'm gonna sign up. Let's see what George sees when we log in. Oh, it didn't log me out. There we go. So if we do outlook.com, hopefully I remembered his password. Bada bing, bada bang, got our email. All right, so it's from administrator. Think about that if you spoof somebody with the spoofing technique we're talking about coming up. you get that person's icon. So that's great as well. So here we see administrator, Vandalay software update. There's our link. It did not get the href tag, so the user has to take this and put it into the website. Slight downside, but I found that they will do that. So let's copy this and get our payload going. I think the payload that I have up there right now is actually the persistent one, so I have to keep that in mind. I want to remove that persistence from myself. So there we go. Client portal, we got the Microsoft update. We would change this to match Vandalay Industries, right? Or clone a site. Gonna hit open file. So we get one warning. It is from the internet, right? Get it open. And then immediately it's mounted. It's prompted for E drive. Now we're on E drive. We didn't add that exclusion to Defender, and we have EDR installed. So nothing picked this up yet. If anything's going to pick this up, it should be EDR, and it should be because we're using Rundle 32. But let's find out. Double click here. No alerts. Let me go to Mythic. I think I've got one open for Mythic here somewhere. Nope. Nope. Ha. Could you add the ISO to OneDrive and bypass the external download issues? Yes, I've done that, but you have to already have access to that company's OneDrive. You could add it to yours, but then you would have to, I believe, share it out, maybe invite the user to your tenant. All right, so I double clicked. I think I need to reload this. My callback's working. I should have a callback. But importantly, we don't have any alerts from EDR, so we're going to log into EDR and see what's going on. But I want to check to see if I indeed got a callback. Sure did. There, we're checking in. So we got our agent. Our persistence is probably there. Let me go check persistence. Oh, this was the non-persistent one. Okay. So anyways, I got an agent. That's great. This wasn't my persistent payload, so we don't have persistence. But if you did use that, make sure you check your implicit app directory. I'll put that in here as well into chat just in case you forgot where it's at. So good, we've got an agent. Nothing happened with EDR. Let's go check that out. Might have to relog in here. Believe we can go to security overview. Oh, that might be why. We didn't have, I didn't enable endpoint security. Let's see if we do that. It should just push it to the host and then we can retry this. You hacked the Death Star. Yeah, that's my host name. I love Star Wars. I'm gonna take a couple screenshots here just in case we need to go back a little bit. So we got the endpoint installed, the EDR installed, but I don't think I added the security. part. No worries, we have lots of time. Just go to overview. Try endpoint security. Let me in. Add endpoint security. Name is required. Just call this endpoint security. You're following along, great. If not, don't worry about it. I'm updating the documentation to add this part. So all we're doing is saying, hey, we're going to install endpoint security. We're going to tell it to add it to the default policy because that's where that's what we're running on our agent. Save and continue. Maybe. This action will update 2 agents. Yes. By default, they give you an agent. I don't know what it's connected to, but. So what this is going to do, this is going to apply this integration for endpoint security, which does things like scanning in memory and all that good stuff, checking. It's the basically the response part of EDR. So I'm going to click on endpoint security there. Click enroll agent. So I think our agent should already be updated. I'm going to copy this command just in case. Coming up on a break here momentarily. So I can close this, I think. Let's check. Let's go back. Oop, not discover. Might have to, these are, oh yes, I know I aborted that request. Maybe it's agent file beat, system security, elastic agent. I think we are. Rules. Aha, so endpoint security is activated. We got a warning because I canceled that one menu, so we should be set to go there. We are activated. I click on it. A little bit of an error there. I think that's okay. Maybe we can do something. Don't know if we have to add the index for this. Wonder if we can do something to trigger the endpoint, the EDR. Let's try our payload again. Oh, I know what I can do. I can just take a blank mythic payload and test that out. So let me go ahead and do that. Apollo website study, download payload. Yeah, Defender found that one, even though we added, oh, and then, yep, so then Elastic got it right there, prevented it. So we do have security running. Our agent is running. So let's check the E drive and let's rerun this, see if we get an alert. Yes, yes, we know you're working. So double click the CPL this time. Elastic EDR is very good. Usually it will detect this. If you just drop CPL resource runner, the one I have on my GitHub, to disk, it will typically detect it and block it, especially when you run it. But there's a few things here that I think are getting around the EDR. One being we're using a custom version of the CPL resource runner, even though we're still loading the shellcode via base 64 decoding and stuff like that. So I got a question. After your phishing payload gets through, do you test the mythic payload functionality against the EDR? Yeah, that's what we just did. All right, so that got blocked, but our CPL didn't. Great. And it's not running again, I think, because I already have one running with Rundle 32. I don't think it likes it twice. Let's see. Let's kill Rundle 32. It's almost break time. We'll break here at 2 for 20 minutes. Let's check our processes. Rundle 32, yep. I'm gonna kill this one. Let's see what happens when we launch another one. There's the Rundle 32. There's my new callback. Memory threat prevention alert. So Elastic Security threw an alert prevention. It says it prevented us. So it looks like it may have, unless our jitter is just taking, even though we got our first callback. So that's interesting. It scanned us in memory afterwards. And let's go look at that alert real quick. So Surgical Mittens asked, do you have any general recommendations on how to access various EDRs to test payloads? I would suggest using this Elastic EDR. It is very cheap. If you buy it, it's only a couple bucks a month for a cloud account like this to test a few hosts on. And Defender, I mean, really, that's all we test our payloads against. We have internally, we're a larger company, so we do have a couple EDRs we can test against, but that's not really feasible for some small companies. So having something like Elastic is really amazing to have, and you can even set it up on your own internal environment and not have to use the Elastic cloud. So we got a malware prevention alert. This might not be the one we just had though. 1552, maybe it is. So view details. So that was MS Edge trying to download. Our Mythic payload. And I don't see our alert in here yet for this memory scanner. Yep, there's my callback. Then it prevents it because that memory scanner, right? So let's click on this. What if this will tell us anything? No, it won't. Should show up in here. Acknowledged, open soon. So we'll take a break at 2 here in 5 minutes. Go ahead and get started. If you want, test your NIM crypt payload. I don't think I have that in the documentation to do in the thing, but we can try that as well. Do 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 do. I don't think so. So let's try that. Ooh, I don't know if I can do the NIM crypt without unpacking it. See, I'm on the same system, so to try to get it up there might be an issue to download. Encrypt 2. So I've got sci-update. I think this is, yeah, it has sci-update.exe in it. So what I want to do for this, I'm just going to, try this. I'm going to use any burn. I'm going to embed this zip real quick. Just want to try nimcrypt. And what's really disheartening sometimes is you'll test your payload on one system right, and then it'll bring it to another one and it's completely different. It won't work. So not always fun. Let's see. Oh, we just name it the same thing. And we will name it mynim.iso. So we have create now. I'm gonna copy this to my Azure app folder. I'm gonna rm sci-update. I'm gonna copy class mynim.iso to here. I need to update my JavaScript. mynim.iso. And then so we're going to try to re-download this, see if the nimcrypt will get by it. So just want to get you familiar with testing your payloads. Again, using Elastic EDR, you can set this up on your own. There's a couple quick tutorials out there. Even Elastic's own website shows it's easy to use. I think there's some Docker containers. And again, this will do like everything else the other EDRs will do. This was from Endgame. Endgame was an EDR company that got bought out by Elastic. So their product is into the Elastic Cloud stuff. So it's actually really good. All right, we are there. Let's see if we get stopped just downloading this in the first place. Vandelay LLC.azurewebsites.net. Might be Vandelay. Yep. Sci-update 1.iso. Do I have this mounted? I do. So let me unmount this. Eject. Open. Ooh, thought that was an alert. No, that's just our autoplay. So we've gotten onto the system. That's my CPL. Why is this not the? Oh, I don't think this saved. APT free with an E5 trial. Did not know that. That's amazing. So you can sign up for E5 like we did for this class. You could get that free trial and try out ATP, I guess. ATP is also amazing. Probably the hardest one I found out there to operate completely against. Oh, I have to clear my browse. Nope, there it is. My name ISO. Let me eject this one. There we go. Now I'm going to extract this here. So it'll be interesting to see if the extraction gets detected with anything. Yeah, I think so. Wait, what happened? Did it? Yeah, it looks like it's getting hit by the EDR. So great. Well, kind of great, right? That's our EDR picking that up. And I wonder what that's from. Let's see if we can go to the EDR here. We'll come back after the break and we'll go look at it in here and see what we're getting picked up on. If we have time at the end, we'll see if we can modify these a little bit to maybe get around those detections. But again, Elastic's really good. So it's great to be able to have this and test against. So give me a few, let's do 2:20, come back at 2:20. I'll set up a timer and we'll get going when we come back. Have a good break, get some bite to eat or something, and we'll see you momentarily. Hey, welcome back. Hopefully got a good break. Just testing out some different payload actions because I like to throw them against the EDR, see what happens. We'll dive into the investigation here in a sec. Let's try, can't probably get to that. Let's do class folder. Paste. Oh, it doesn't like it at all. One moment. Let's see. There we go. Extract DOM. I'm gonna test this one. Just testing a different payload here. Oop. No 3. So I've got this in a quarantine folder or a folder that is excluded from Defender, but I don't know about malware. So just trying different methods. We have syscall loading, process injection, stuff like that, all which can be picked up by EDR in different cases. Let's go look at what picked this up here. So this was the download of, oh, looks like it's going back. If you log into your Elastic EDR, you can go to security, alerts. See the alerts on the timeline. Yeah, so this one looks like a parent-child process deal. The details. So process explore.exe, parent process user int.exe, no 3 user, blah, blah, blah. Yep. So that was it. Let's see if we can show it. We can isolate the host, all that kind of stuff. Let's see the timeline. So here we go. Shows you the timeline, kind of user on this computer, user this domain at this computer, prevented from creating malicious file. So detected the file, and these are the parent-child. So no.exe via explorer.exe via parent process user init, and then the hash. What's interesting though, it tells you all that, but it doesn't give you the exact. And I think that's probably a good thing for them. So it doesn't give you the exact reason why. Like it says, malicious file, but is that because of the child process, or is that because of the file hash or what's in the file? That's why we test. That's why we do a lot of these payload testings. I'll come back to that, but I want to continue on to some of the phishing. Dive into the token tactics in that. We've got enough time to get through that, and then probably some time to recover some testing some payloads or cover whatever you all want to play with or have questions on. So let's get to the next section. Where is that? So that's one method for phishing. Use a business email account. Most likely going to get through spam filters and all that stuff. And then it just depends on the payload that you're using. In this case, we're going to use token tactics. So we're going to attempt to get an access token and a refresh token. So sign out and close all browsers. Let's go ahead and do that. Who do I want to be signed in as? Your main Azure account. Okay, sign out. And got another one here. Sign out. Nope, don't need to sign out of that one, just this. No, close it all. All right, so let's open up Portal Azure, pull this to a new tab, log in with my main account. Doesn't matter. And there's a couple ways to do this. I want to show you how to do it from the console. So you can also do it with a Python script that I've included at the very end, just to make things easier. Again, you can proxy your traffic. You're going to want to proxy your traffic, especially if you're sending from your home IP. So you could proxy through the Cloud Shell or through something else, maybe geo-regional to your target organization. So I want to make sure you're on the right, just the right directory. That's why I have in here. You may need to switch your Azure directory. Just make sure you're on the right one. Got a note from Matt M. For Elastic, you can see the rule details on the alert by selecting the View Details button. Then in Overview, you can see the reason. Oh, cool. We'll test that out here in a little bit. Thanks, Matt. So let's go to Cloud Shell. You can do that by clicking. You can either navigate to it or you can click on it right here. Cloud Shell. You can even go to Azure or Windows Terminal and click on Azure Cloud Shell if you would like. Now note that Cloud Shells will time out, I believe, after like 20 minutes. So be cognizant of that. You just have to, hit enter or something, do some interaction. First time you create a Cloud Shell, it may ask you to create storage for that. So your shell needs storage, so you have to create the storage part. So you might see that. And then once you get in, you should have your terminal here. And you could switch between PowerShell and Bash, whichever you like. We're going to be using PowerShell here for token tactics. So right from here, I'm going to clone token tactics. It already exists. We've already done that. Okay, there we go. Now we need to import token tactics. So that's simple import module token tactics.psd1. Here you go, we get a little alert says unapproved verb. That's just because we use one of the verbs that PowerShell doesn't like, but it's okay. We want to open the code editor. That's this little open editor button right here. And boom, you've got VS Code pretty much right there in your terminal window. Very handy. We're going to first open up the example fish.html. So within token tactics, I'm going to go to resources, example fish. This is an HTML version of an older, probably a year old or so now. Microsoft sent out a device code email. I captured that, we put it into a template, kind of made it nice. You can change this up. You can use your own template. You can do whatever you want. this case, I'm going to say Vandalay LLC account email verification code. And that's the title. So that's what the title of the window the user will see. We're going to leave this open. And we want to go down to the device code. Might be hard to see here. Here's what our email says. Your device has been signed out of Microsoft. Please use the device code to link your account. This code expires in 15 minutes. We've got the link to where they go, device login. And then down on line 56, we have the device code. So before we modify that and save it, we have to get a code. So right here we can save if you hit the little 3 dots. We don't need to do that just yet because we have to actually replace this code. So I'm going to highlight that. I've got token tactics imported. Get Azure token. In our next commandlet, parameter is going to be client. If you hit tab, you can see the various clients that we have here. And some of these might look familiar. Azure Management, Azure Core Management, those are some of the things that Azure Hound requires, tokens for those. And you can see we can switch, those are the tokens that we can switch between. So if we fish with an MS Graph token, which is the main token, we can then switch it to Substrate or Outlook or MS Teams. You can even fish MS DoD endpoints if you are a government employee and you have authorization to do so, obviously. So we're going to do an MS Graph because that's what I consider like the parent token. That's the token to have all tokens, I guess, because then you can read email. You can do everything with Graph almost. Just some of these other tokens make it easier to interact. So when we hit enter here, well, we won't first. Let's go ahead and change. Let's see what other options we have. We have client ID. So remember when we sprayed, we could change the client ID, we could change the resource. Right here we see resource, right? So we can change which app it's coming from. And I'm going to show you which app it comes from by default. You can change the device, Android, iPhone, Mac, Windows. The browser, Android, Chrome, Edge, Firefox, IE, Safari, so marry them together so they look similar. Going to go ahead and get this graph token. All right, so now we have basically 15 minutes to get this fish in and have the user click. Not a lot of time, so we do this kind of fast. I'm gonna go slow here though, so we can follow along. Going to paste that token into my email, and I'm going to hit save. I'm gonna open up another window with this new session button right here. It's gonna open me a new Cloud shell. Then we're going to send, get our send mail message together. And in this option, in the test here, I don't use the, yeah, we'll do this without the content saved here. I think I kind of skipped a little bit. So you can either use the template, right, like I did, or in the example on number 16, I just send a fish and I say basically the same thing, enter device code, login, here's your code. What I want to do, let's see if I can do this with the template that I have. So I'm going to set variable to email body equals get content. Token tactics. Resources. Example fish. I'm going to change that to out string. I want it to be basically in a string. So now if I hit email body, I've got my template. So now I can do this same thing here on 16. Oop, clicked on it. Send mail message, built right into the console, SMTP server. I'm going to use Vandelay LLC, Vandelay Industries LLC on Microsoft.com. I believe that's it. I'm going to use SSL. You don't have to, but I'm sending something to the client. I'm going to. 2, dang it, keep clicking on that. For 2, we're going to say George at Vandelay Industries LLC.com. Oh, sorry, it's industries.onmicrosoft.com. Yes. 1 second, coax, I'll get that for you. Now we need a from. That's going to be admin at Vandelay Industries LLC.onmicrosoft.com. Again, we haven't tied a domain to our domain there, so it's an onmicrosoft.com. We're going to say subject Microsoft code, body is our email body. And we're going to say body as HTML because we want to send this email as an HTML. Name or service not known, so I apparently got my SMTP server wrong. Vandelay Industries. And you can look this up actually if you do NS lookup. Vandelay, oh, okay. So it's Vandelay Industries, our SMTP server. I foobarred that, and it is mail.protection.outlook.com. So that's our SMTP server. So that's the command I'm using. And I'll post this in chat. Don't send to me, but send to your own tenant. Company. There we go. Yeah, and Galactozoid had the right idea there for getting the content. So now I should be able to send it. My fish is still going here. Aha! Sent the email. So now George should have an email. Let me go ahead and have Firefox in here yet. Yes. Open private window. Oh, yep. I can edit that. Thank you. Now let's go to outlook.com. Sign in. This will be George. It works. All right, so we've done a successful Microsoft Outlook 365 connection spoof. So that did not land in our junk or spam or anything, and we successfully sent an email message from outside the organization to inside the organization. Oh wait, that's the old one. Oh, did it go? Where's that? Send it to the right one? Oh, my administrator. Hang on, did I send that to the right place? Vandelay Industries LLC.onmicrosoft.com. Yeah, but I don't see it anywhere. Did it go? Did it go? Did it go? Am I the right view account? I'm sure I had the right dealio there. If not, I'll use the Python. And let me take out the use SSL. Maybe I'm getting a little wonky there. Vandelay, I'm typing. Yep. So give it a shot. See if you get into your tenants. I'm going to try my Kate Libby at FutureSec here in a minute. I'm not sure what dealio. Name or service not known. So that's your SMTP server. So that should be your Vandelay Industries LLC.mail.protection.outlook.com, something like that. It may be. Again, if we do NS lookup, Vandelay Industries. Oh, I could have picked a shorter name. .com or -com on Microsoft.com. Not there. Oh wait, sorry, mail. Nothing. So there's my server, Vandelay Industries LLC.mailprotection.outlook.com. What I'm interested in is if this is the same thing as the SPFD. Sure is. So it's actually the same server. So we should be able to point to the SPFD as well. That's new to me. And I don't know if it matters which tenant you're on. They are different. Oh, they are different. They are different. So mine seems to be sending, but maybe it's not. I'm gonna try this spoof email here. Let me try if I'm an outside org, or let me just try this simple guy right here. Control A, copy. Wondering if it's the template. Oh, so you get banned, coax. You gotta, yeah. So what you can do with that is you can either proxy through a geolocated VPS. You can even proxy through your VPS you made for Mythic in this pinch. Or you can recreate your Cloud Shell. I'm wondering why, if somebody else is phishing from that same IP. Vandelay Industries LLC.onmicrosoft.com to and George. Yep. Yeah, it's your testing domain. Yeah. My other ones are burned too. A couple of them. Mandalay Industries LLC.mailproduction.com. Just send that simple one without the HTML. Worked for you. All right, where is my other browser window? So Techno Bro, you got in? So I'm running out of time here for my fish. Find my right inbox. Aha, there it is. Okay. If you have issues with the HTML file, maybe the template is completely burned. There is a command in the notes right there, number 16, to do it just in a one-liner. So let's look at that. And let me actually log in, since here's your device code. Again, see, the URL is not linked because we didn't href it. I'm going to hit the device code and sign in. George Costanza. Are you trying to sign into Microsoft Office? So keep that in mind. When we did this device code login from AZ login from PowerShell before, it gave us a different answer. It says, are you logging into PowerShell? So you can change that with the client ID and all that, and the resource. So we've signed in. On our left-hand side there, we should get our token response. Now we've got an access token and a refresh token for George at Vandalay. So if we type response, we get the same thing. That's all of our tokens. $ response. Now we can take that response flag. So refresh your console IP. You actually have to nuke your console storage and then start a new one. And I can show you how to do that. So Galactozoid says, and now you just read their email. Well, you can do lots of things. You can read their emails. You can maybe log into SharePoint. You can do Azure Hound. You can send Teams messages, send other fishes, internal fishes. We talked about that earlier, being a huge way to get back into an environment. So this is a great way to get initial access to the external, right? Which is just an extension of the internal or the external, the perimeter firewall and all that stuff, right? So now what you have this, now you can look like George and do whatever you want. Send Teams messages to other people with payloads and things like that. So let's check that out. If we do response.access token, there's our access token. If I copy this real quick, I can go to jwt.ms. I can paste my access token in here and it decodes it for me. So I can see that my audience is graph.microsoft.com. That's the MS Graph client. The app display name is Office. So if we change this to a different client ID and whatever, we would auth to something else. Big part of it here is the SCP. This is our scope. This is everything we can do with George Costanza. Let me zoom in on this. We can read the audit logs, calendar read writes, check the data loss prevention settings, device management configuration, read groups, read files, directories, team member, tasks, users, read write. It's pretty much everything that George can do. It's pretty cool. So now let's put some of this to use, but I do want you to see if we try to spoof from an outside domain. What I've seen here is that if they've got Proofpoint or something like that, it typically removes some of these protections, and we can then spoof external to internal. We might have a different result here due to us not having that additional protection or external services. Yeah, coax, I'll show you that here in a bit. All right, so response.access token, what you really need is the response.refresh token. This refresh token is what gets you persistence, right? Every 90 days, even more so if you refresh it before then. So we've got our refresh token, and it's in that response.refresh token variable. I'm going to send another fish real quick from here. And instead of from admin, found a coax, great. Anybody else get a band when they tried to send the fish, or is that just coax being a bad hacker? Bad person. They've got you on the list. So I'm gonna do no reply at uber.com. Again, that could be anywhere. I'm not picking on Uber. Just saying. They have a fancy little icon here that'll show up if email permissions allow it, right? So here we see we don't have that rule for uber.com. Think about that. If people have protections on their Proofpoint and things like that, the protections on Microsoft might be more lax. So this one went to junk, but we can still see that it looks like it's from noreply.uber.com. So I sent one of these to one of my last clients, and it went right through his inbox, and he was like, holy crap, how did you send an email from Uber? And I didn't. I sent it from your Outlook connector. So pretty interesting, pretty cool. If you're doing this against if you have an assessment coming up, I usually test this with my point of contact before I actually go into the phishing. So if I'm on a red team engagement, I'll say, hey, we want to send some phishing campaigns, but we want to test that we get in, that our fishes can make it to your inbox beforehand. So sometimes we'll do that. If there's a SOC that's actively watching the mails and it gets caught as spam, you kind of burn yourself up front. So just think about that. And then the next lab we're going to go into, we're going to use this device code. So make sure you get a device code. Go ahead and go through that. Even if you have problems phishing and you need to come back to that later, just kind of fish yourself. Do the device code over here. Like all that Azure token client MS Graph, and then just kind of log into yourself with the other account, with the George account or whatever your Microsoft 365 Office account is. So if I'm on an engagement, I probably want to keep that refresh token handy and secure. So I would take that response.refresh token, copy it out, put it somewhere else, a text file or something on my VM or in my my credential security software, whatever you're using. That way you can reuse it later, and you can import it into other shells. You don't have to use it in the same PowerShell shell. Like I could copy this and then come over to this PowerShell shell and add it to a variable and use it there. And again, keep in mind, so we really want to do that because we're going to lose access to this Cloud Shell after about 20 minutes of inactivity. And we want to be able to come back to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to response that refresh token, out file encoding ASCII, and just make it refresh token George.txt. So now I have it in a text file there that I can load it up with get content later and reuse it. So let's go ahead and take, it's 2:55, let's take a 10-minute break, come back at 10 after 3, and then we'll pick up where we left off. We'll go through some what to do once we have this token, and we'll take it from there. And see you in a minute, 10 minutes. All right, we're back. So we just did some phishing with business email phish. Typically that'll get through without any spam filters unless there's some kind of spammy stuff inside your email. We also sent a token tactics phish. I guess we kind of learned from this that the email template, I don't know, let me know if you use the template with getting content of the HTML and that went through. I think I've noticed a few times recently that gets eaten up. So customizing your own template may be the way to go. So we're going to talk a little bit about using that token that we received. So what we can do is first get a token, right? Either manually or phishing. If you have a user's password and they don't do multi-factor, you can do it this way and just create your own token and access their stuff. Or you can do it with a phish. And then we're going to convert the Microsoft Graph token to a management token. So let's go ahead and do that. So that's well, we'll do it when we get to the lab, but that's a case where you can just convert to, I talked about the refresh to feature, and that being kind of like one of the main points of token tactics is to be able to switch between the resources that you're attacking. All right, so by default, token tactics and AAD internals aren't exactly compatible. They will be soon because I will be adding this to token tactics to save the access token to a cache. When you run AAD internals, you can do the same phishing as you can do here for the most part and get a token and save it to a variable in cache. Which is it just saves a little bit differently for token tactics, so they don't quite marry up. But if you do this, you can add your access token to the cache and then use AAD internals accordingly. In order to do so, right now AAD internals needs a little bit of a modification to one of the files. So in the killchain.ps1 file, we comment out the refresh token part that they have and put in our refresh token so that we can use ours. Again, I'll kind of make these a little better cross-compatible in the future, but for right now, we got to do a little bit of manual modification, which if you're used to doing offensive engagements, this is something that we have to do a lot, like manual modifications, right? Testing our payloads against EDR. If they don't work, try something else, keep going until something does. Because like we've seen in this class, I'll test it on one computer 2 days ago, everything works fine, and then we try something again today and it gets detected. So that is life with payloads. Tokens though, we don't have to worry about that, and we can refresh them just about forever. So get users, first thing we can do there is list users in the domain. The first thing that I do is this, because when you gain access to an environment via phish, it could get reported, user reporting. They could change the password, which would kick you out. They could purge all the tokens to kick you out. So the first thing you want to do is, besides persistence, which you kind of already have with the refresh token, unless they do any of those things, you need to grab the email addresses and users from the directory. So that way you can rephish, right? If you need to rephish. If you're outside doing a red team, you might not have all of the users' email addresses, their descriptions, and things like that. So we can do that with AAD internals, and that's what that looks like. So once we've ran users equals invoke AAD user enumeration as insider groups. Now this is working because we've saved the token to an AAD internals cache variable. So you have to do that modification in order to make this work. You can then spit out the display name and the user printable name. So that would be what you want to log in with. And any other identities they have, maybe down there at the bottom if they've got an identity in another domain. As you can see, Lord Nikon has a futuresec.io domain, but the issuer was futuresec.onmicrosoft.com. So, yep, get that data, get those usernames and emails. Here's a quick two-liner basically to get that stuff for you. And I would save those to a file for future use. So Microsoft Teams. So we need a special token for Teams. We have that in the refresh too. We can do that refresh to MS Teams and get the token for that. We can read and send email messages or send Teams messages as compromised users, so that's huge. I think Teams just recently said that you can email or message somebody in another organization from your own organization without an invite, but I tried that recently and I still had to get an invite. The user still has to accept you and all that stuff. If you're doing it this way, you're sending it internally like you're from that user, so or from the inside, so you don't have to do that external to internal verification. And again, so data collection, passwords, searching those Teams messages for any sensitive data, passwords, links to internal websites or external websites. We found logins and credentials like that for external company websites as well. Links to company portals, yep. All kinds of juicy stuff you can get from Teams messages. Think about all the stuff that you send in your organization that you've seen people send. Hey, here's the zip, and then here's the password to the zip, right? Or I've sent it in an email. I've sent the zip in an email and the password in Teams. Okay, well, we have access to both now. Speaking of email, so search for sensitive data. Mail Sniper, you couldn't do this before with an access token. I have since and had a pull request done and merged into Mail Sniper to allow you to do Mail Sniper functions with access tokens as well as with credentials. So send internal phishing emails. You can backdoor documents, do business email compromise and invoices. So what I'm talking about there is we see a lot of threat actors before, and this was before and during ransomware, where you would phish somebody, you would gain access to their email, maybe put a rule in there. Anytime an invoice, something with the title invoice comes in, we get alerted or it forwards it to us. And then we can take that invoice, we can modify it to say, hey, pay this bank account, right? Send it back in. Oh, I forgot to update my details. Here you go. And then they will pay you the money. It's basically how an email business compromise works. And they send the money somewhere else before it gets blocked. Another good one is backdooring documents, right? People share files all the time on Teams. Teams basically just runs on SharePoint anyways. So you can grab files, make sure you check the files and all that stuff if you can, to backdoor documents, and then send them back into the enterprise. So this is a kind of an interesting one. So we were in Microsoft Exchange Administrator earlier, and you could see the things we could do with rules and mail flow, all kinds of stuff to manage, right? If you're an administrator of Exchange, you can manage all that stuff from there. Well, if you get somebody's credentials, you can go to the ECP right here, substrate.office.com. I found Substrate while doing my research into token tactics. I was just checking burp requests, just randomly logging into stuff and seeing what's going on. And I saw this subdomain for substrate.office.com. Excuse me, got a plane flying over. So I started digging into Substrate and seeing what it was, started doing like AMAS brute forcing to see what subdomains I could find off of substrate.office.com, found a lot of interesting stuff. And in Token Tactics, there is a folder under resources called example requests. In there, we had some requests where you could open like OA, Outlook Web Application, from Substrate without or after getting a token. Microsoft has since mitigated that. I did not get a bounty. I did not submit a bounty. I did not think it was bounty worthy, but they fixed that. So running that through Burp now does not work, but you can still use the Microsoft Graph API and Mail Sniper to read and send emails. So think about this. If you gain access to a user, might not be an Exchange admin, but you could still log in, say, hey, put my user on the safe senders list, and then refish that user as an external user with a payload. That payload will go through, right? You can set up rules as well. You know, if you see something come in, send me an email, whatever. All kinds of interesting things. And you see here on Substrate, there's a /ECP. So that's the URI, the directory, right, for Exchange portal. There are other portals there. You could go to EWS, that's the EWS portal, OA. You can go to OA, log in there. So Substrate is what it is. It's the substrate. It's the underlying fabric of all of Microsoft 365. Everything on Substrate is considered an object, and they all tie into all of the services. So there's a lot of attack surface there that still needs to be researched, but you can definitely do some interesting things with Substrate, and some things they're starting to fix. Azure Hound. So enumerate Azure permissions after your device code fish. I'm actually going to go to this post here. If I can get it to open. So I want to show you the tokens that are required to run Azure Hound. If you're not familiar with Azure Hound, it is part of Bloodhound. Bloodhound is a tool for Active Directory to find and map attack paths within Active Directory environments. There is an Azure update that does the same thing except for Microsoft Azure. So you see down here, it will list out like the various service principals, apps, subscriptions, all that kind of stuff that it can find as your current user's permissions. So here you'll see an example that they provided of looking through the default directory, checking the users. You can see what groups users are. You can see what permissions they have. Like right here, this app can run as things. This app owns this user. All kinds of stuff to go into and figure out if you can abuse it. Well, you can do that with token tactics. If we look at the install screenshot that they have, we'll see here they're running PowerShell. They're installing the AZ module there, so Azure module. We should have that installed already in class. You also need to install Azure AD. In this case, they're installing Azure AD Preview. You can do that. That's just the latest and greatest version. And then once we have that, we can connect to Azure AD and we can connect to AZ account. And in order to do so, you would have to feed it your tokens, right? So there are fields to accept your tokens, but you need two different type of tokens for that. You need your MS Graph token and you need your management token, Azure core.management token. So you have to load those two different tokens in there. I don't think it tells you, because you're logging into two different services, AZ and then Azure AD. So we can do that with token tactics and feed it our tokens. Let's go ahead and do an internal Microsoft Teams search. I think that's it for the slides. Yeah. So that is it for those slides. Let's go ahead and do this. So an internal Microsoft Teams fish. During setup, you should have installed the company or corporate or business Microsoft Teams version. If you do Microsoft Office and do the Office install, it installs the regular Office version. I don't know the difference, but apparently there is one. So we're going to open up PowerShell. We're going to go to our class folder, and I'm going to see my my Azure account is dying because it's timing out. I'm just going to hit enter in here because I want to get that refresh token that I saved. So we already have token tactics. You can skip step 2. You can skip step 3. We already have a token. If you don't, go ahead and do it that way. Assign the refresh token to a variable. So I'm going to get content refresh token George. I'm going to assign it to just refresh token equals get content, refresh token George. Otherwise, you can just use your response.refresh token if you still have it. We're going to import AAD internals. So I'm doing this on here. So I'm switching to my Windows PowerShell terminal. I've got this in here, but I'm going to get content, refresh token George. I'm actually going to copy this out. Go to desktop, class, code refresh token. I'm going to save it to here. Since I didn't fish from here, I don't have the token handy. So you can, like I said, it's portable. You can take it with you. Save. And then I can assign that to refresh token equals get content refresh token. So now I've moved my token from my Azure cloud service to this, my local service, my local PC. So I can import module AAD internals. And then we are going to open Microsoft Teams, all right? So we should have Teams down here. Work or school, right? Doing that one. I think that's the right one. So we're going to log in as our admin. We're going to send a phishing email, phishing text or whatever to our admin user. Take a minute to boot up. Let's go ahead and get started into your work or school account. So again, this is going to be my admin account because I'm going to send a fish from George to my admin. All right. Stay signed into all your apps. Windows will remember your account and automatically sign you into your app and website on this device. This will reduce the number of times. I'm just going to sign into this app only, right? I don't want them to have control or see my whole PC or whatever, just this app. But I'm signing in with my own account right now. So the admin account, again, this could be any user in the org that you want to fish. In my case, I'm just doing the admin. Now we need to refresh our Teams token, or refresh to Microsoft Teams. So we can do refresh to oh, I guess I have to import token tactics here. I did not do that. I hate when you tab complete and it just takes forever. All right, token tactics. I have token tactics on here. Maybe I don't. Jeez, how's this taking so long? Okay, so I gotta have token tactics in here. Now we can refresh or import it. Import module. All right. Now I can refresh to. Did I set my refresh token to variable? Yes, it is refresh token. So refresh to Azure Core Management, DoD, Graph Token, MAM token, that is the Microsoft Access Management, I believe, Graph Token, Manage Token, Teams Token. So we're gonna get the Teams token. Then we have to give it the domain. So this is our target, right? Or for whoever our domain is for. So this is Vandelay LLC, Vandelay Industries LLC.onmicrosoft.com. And then our refresh token, we'll give it the variable refresh token. Bada-bing. So we should see up here our resource this time. Remember those resources? We're back on the API spaces.skype.com. That's the Microsoft Teams. Bearer token, see we can read and write to the app in the region. Access token, refresh token. So now we should have an MS Teams token variable. Every time you refresh to a new token type, you get the token variable in that name. So if you were to refresh to a DoD token, the variable name would be like DoD MS Graph token. So we can hit that, see that we have the same token. And we can see that we have access token, we have dot refresh token, so we got another refresh token. You can keep using the MS Graph refresh token to refresh to any of the others. You don't have to like cascade them. So let's send a message to ourselves with AAD internals. So we can see here, there's some options, exchange message, hybrid health service events, OneDrive file. You could send OneDrive files to people. Ooh, juicy. Outlook messages, Teams messages, all that good stuff. So let's give it our access token. It's going to be MS Teams token dot access token. All right, we're going to select the access token property of our MS Teams token. We do our recipient admin at Vandelay Industries LLC.onmicrosoft.com. Our message. Your device. Now let's say we've device code fished this user. Now we probably don't want to do that. Device code fish another user from another user. That probably wouldn't look right. So we would say something along, yep, your PC, not to the admin, but maybe your PC requires critical update if we're fishing from the admin to somebody else. But you can make it fit your pretext as necessary. So like here, we're putting a link to a file. This would be our ISO download or our payload download. It could be to IPFS, anywhere you're hosting your payload for access. Okay. And then we're going to send this as HTML, so our link gets embedded. See what other options we have. External, if you're an external user, or if you're sending to an external user. Fake internal, I haven't used that yet. I guess there's some options in here for spoofing. Maybe he just added them. Let's go ahead and send that off. Aha, got a new message from George. PC requires a reboot. Now see here, we did HTML, but I didn't put href in there. I did a BR so that it did a new line. So it does accept HTML. I bet if we did that again and did an ahref, Oh, I have to single quote that because there we go. Look at that. This message contains links, but it was not well formed HTML. Check the syntax. Did it go through? It still went through. Gave us a warning. Still got the link. No AV to stop us. No spam filters. No nothing. Let's give this a try. And let's see. Let's try that fake internal. See what that does. At some point. I don't know if we can do that from the outside or not. So we sent a fish via Teams. Works well. Again, you could send it to anybody in the organization. Be careful if you send it to, like, you know, disbursement groups and things like that. Cool. If you have any issues, let me know. We're going to finish this lab out with a mailbox interaction real quick. And then I'm going to try to leave you 15 minutes here to ask questions, follow up with anything you need, and I can stick around in Discord if you need help following back up. So I need to go back to my class folder, token tactics. Yes, we're already there. We've got all this. Refresh token, we've got that. It says refresh to MS graph token. Our original fish already has an MS graph token, but we probably want to refresh that. So we can do refresh to MS graph token. Refresh token would be refresh token. That domain, Van Delay Industries LLC.soft.com. I guess I gotta add that to that part of the refresh token section. Let's try that. There we got a refresh token. Now it's MS graph, it's not response, so MS graph token. There it is. And I just updated the documentation over here, should update momentarily. So next we're going to use this graph token. I'm going to say dumped emails right here. It's not the prettiest to read emails with Mail Sniper. You can output them as CSV and stuff like that. You can send them as well, but we're going to dump these emails into it's in a new line. Copy this in there. Access token, shoot. Copy and paste is not working very well in here. It's not like it. So dumped emails equals dump OA mailbox graph API, access token, mail folder, inbox. Again, you can specify whatever inbox you want. Hit enter. Now we should have dumped emails. There we go. So we've got the emails that we've sent and received. There's our phishing email. And then you can search and grep and look for passwords, things like that, whatever is in their inbox that might interest you. Now we're going to use Mail Sniper. I've got a nice little AMZ bypass, anti-malware scanning interface bypass here. This will bypass Defender's anti-malware. I don't know what it's going to do with Elastic, so we will find out momentarily. This could be an epic failure, but we'll see. This is going to hopefully allow us to run Mail Sniper in memory. I don't know why this isn't copying correctly. Go. Let me copy this to, it might just be a copy pasta error. Do that. No, I think it's copy pasta. Let me get the right one. I like using this one. Doesn't seem to get caught. Oh, that was my error. That was the error. All right, updating the documentation. There we go. See if this refreshed yet. Give that a minute. I'm gonna post. Get all Southern there for a minute. Post this in chat. There's your AMSI bypass. Still works. Yay, EDR. Make sure we go to the class folder. I'm going to clone Mail Sniper. See if anything picks it up. Nothing. Going to import the module. No valid file was found in the module directory. What? There we go. All right, so import module Mail Sniper. Ah, I see what the deal is there. Updated documentation. Okay, so AMSI is updated in the docs. Import Mail Sniper. Now we can do send EWS email. So that is our Exchange Web Services. Oh, I didn't do the refresh to Substrate. My bad. I missed that step. Refresh to my domain. So we got to get that Substrate token so we can interact with Substrate on this one because we're going to hit the Substrate EWS API. So Vandelay Industries LLC. There we go. Now we've got a refresh token for Substrate. Again, like I said, it's every time you refresh to, you get a different token. So here's Substrate token variable. Here's the email with secrets. Here's your password. The Vandelay Industries LLC. Your user. Recipient is George. Exchange host name. So that's substrate.office.com. It could be, I think, Outlook365.com as well. www.outlook365.com also has an EWS endpoint. There's a lot of other Substrate subdomains that have EWS endpoints. Give this a shot. Oh, I think I got a double, yeah. Double, whatever, double dash here. There we go. Fixing that in the docs. I love Notion. All right, so following along here, It's a single dash here. I just updated the docs, so give it a minute to refresh. Now I sent an email to myself, or to George, from George, didn't I? EWS stands for Exchange Web Service. So if I'm already George, I don't want to send this to George. I could. Yeah, we'll send it back to ourselves. Again, we could send this to whoever, but we have an access token for George. So let's then search George's email box with invoke self-search. So invoke self-search is part of Mail Sniper. This allows you to use the access token then to search email boxes this way, instead of dumping it out to, like a CSV or just reading and grepping. Again, we're going to use a substrate endpoint. Vandelay Industries LLC. George. In this case, we're going to output it as emails.csv. Trying, logging in. Oh, found a password with the term password in there. So now I've got CSV here, I believe. Emails. There we go. There's our information. And you could probably put this into like a PowerShell variable and search it differently. Yeah. So that's pretty much that. So we can send emails via and send and search with substrate tokens and graph tokens as well. In this case, we used a substrate token. Got a little AMSI bypass in there for you. If we want to use AMSI.fail, there are other AMSI bypasses out there. I don't know if all of these work still. Ooh, does it even? Yep, still got them. So you can just hit generate and use those. All right. I think that's the end of the lab, end of the labs, end of the course. Just about right on time. Course cleanup, let's give it a little bit of action there. So what you want to do, again, this is a free, if you've got the free account, great. If you don't, if it's pay to go, it's still pretty cheap. Once your Microsoft trial ends, it will just end because it doesn't automatically switch to a pay as you go subscription. So just keep that in mind. You can go in there, just monitor it. Remember, you've got it for time period you have it for, and you can sign in and delete your resource groups. That's what I usually do to clean up. And again, I told you before that resource groups are great because you can track your cost. So let me see. Let's go ahead and check that out. I'll show you where to go in here to clean up your resources, because if you do have free credits, remember, I think you get $200 worth of free credits. So why not use them? Keep testing, keep playing around with the lab. You just come in here to resource groups, click on your EIEA or whatever your infrastructure is. Don't have to delete your cloud storage or anything like that. And then nuke it, or you can nuke it all if you want, but click on it, hit delete resource group. Matt's got a little tip in the chat for you. I won't say that on video, but looks cool. All right, so that's how you delete your resource groups, which then deletes your stuff. So let's just see, am I Vandelay? Future Frank Rizzo. Let's look at my billing, see if we have any billing. I don't know if it'll tell us if we're using the free account, how many credits we've used. Nothing. Okay, cool. All right, so that's that. That's the course. We've got about 14 minutes here left. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in chat. Again, I'm going to stick around. We'll close the video and everything here at 4. But I'll stick around in Discord probably for the next half hour, an hour, and answer any questions that you may have. Play with the labs, test your payloads, try the EDR, check out the parent-child process trees and all that stuff. Get used to testing your things, because this environment, working in this job, it's banging your head against the keyboard 90% of the time, right? Why isn't this working? Well, it's those troubleshooting tips. Having many tools in your tool belt to do the things that you need to do. So that's why I do the training like I do it, so that you have the information. You can use it if you want. You can modify it as you go. Exercise your clients as needed, and hopefully some of these phishing things and payload drops coming into the networks will help enhance your client security. So hope you all enjoyed it. Appreciate it. Stick around, answer any questions. Hope you have some success with the things I've taught you. Hi, Jason.
Hey, so obviously that you can hear me, right?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, just making sure. Obviously that's it. So that's the end of the day. We're getting ready to close it out. Just want to remind you guys that the recording will be posted in the resources channel in about 3 hours. Also, you will receive your email for your cyber range access. You'll get 6 months. So if you already have access, it's just going to add another 6 months. You will also get an email with your certificate of completion to turn in for CPE hours. It will also include an evaluation form. I think it's like maybe 10 to 15 questions. Just fill that out, submit it, and you will be entered into a chance to win a I Only Show Up for Pre-Show Banter t-shirt. And then of course, you know, join us for Way West. Join us for other classes that we've got going on. I know we've got two next week, and then a third one, well, 3 next week, but one of them is just a 2-day event, not a 4-day event. So but yeah, join us for more classes. Get out to Way West, meet us. We'll all be there. Steve, you'll be there, right?
Way West, no, but Wild West I will. And I'm around all the time. Don't feel like you took this class, it's a one shot and then you got the information and that's it, I'm gone. Feel free to reach out anytime. I am happy to help and answer questions. I love doing this. I love just giving the things that I know out to the community. Check out my GitHub and all that stuff, and look forward to working with all of you again.
All right, that's it. You guys have a wonderful weekend. See you guys next time.
We can shut it down. Take care.